Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 119. I'm Tristan Jutra.
Oh, it's just me? I'm Will Silver.
Just you and me, kid.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and I.
Welcome to Momentous Live Karaoke Edition. So, Will. No Tasia tonight. No Gray tonight. Gray's got a good reason. Tasia's not so much, but
She's got a good reason. It's Yankee Day down there, isn't it?
Happy belated Canada Day, formerly Dominion Day, to all our Canadian friends, and happy Independence Day today, July 4th, to all our friends in the United States of America, including Tasia, who is currently celebrating with gusto, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope to see both Tasia and Gray back with us.
Does her husband know about gusto?
You can find out more about Momentous at momentous.tv/links for all the social platforms and our individuals at momentous.tv/team, and the audio version of this at momentous.tv/podcast. All right, well, let's start with a little bit of follow-up. Unfortunately, Gray's not with us today to talk about the latest Reddit drama. So just as a reminder, about a month ago or so, in preparation for their upcoming IPO going public, Reddit co-founder and CEO, I believe his name is Steve Huffman, basically announced that Reddit was going to be charging for API access, application programming interface access for, and the idea was to be able to monetize all the large language models that were scraping Reddit's website to for machine learning and artificial intelligence purposes, whether it's Google or Facebook's or OpenAI's ChatGPT. But as a part of that, all these other apps kind of got cut up in that, so that Apollo, for example, the most popular Reddit app for iOS, was going to have to pay upwards of $20 million a year. And that would see a significant price increase for users of said app, and basically just broke the entire business model. Not to mention that of a number of other third-party apps that Reddit moderators use to help manage the various subreddits, the variety of communities on Reddit. And as we've seen over the last few weeks, there have been increasing efforts by the various moderators to stage a protest, a blackout of sorts. They have done things like gone private, made their subreddits private, so they're not available to folks who are not members of said subreddits. And as such, the subreddits were no longer crawlable by the search engines. Reddit provides a lot of valuable search results for Google and other search engines, not to mention the aforementioned data for these large language models when people are playing with ChatGPT and the like. So Steve Huffman, the CEO of Reddit, and all this, while all this was unfolding, basically told his team that this too shall pass. It was all going to blow over. But the Reddit moderators who were protesting basically took that as a challenge and have continued to up the ante. The latest kind of things that they've been doing lately, over the last few weeks, some of the subreddits have, I think Gray may have alluded to this previously, have started calling themselves NSFW, or labeling themselves not safe for work, whether they were or not. What that basically means is that Reddit will no longer show advertisements alongside the content in those subreddits, thus depriving Reddit of advertising revenue. And some of these subreddits not only have labeled themselves NSFW, but have actually started allowing not safe for work posts as well. Now, on just this week, just yesterday, r/Pix, which is a massive community with only over 30 million members, has now marked itself not safe for work. So one of the very most popular subreddits on Reddit will not be benefiting from advertising revenue. And of course, we are probably going to start to see not safe for work images being posted on there, because a lot of the moderators is like, hey, if Reddit's not going to listen to us, we're just going to keep cranking this up more and more. And another development is that the moderators for AMAs, Ask Me Anythings. So the subreddit there have decided to basically stop doing much of their work. So it's the subreddit is called IAMA. So IAMA, and it's basically I'm a live streamer. Ask me anything. I am a French chef. Ask me anything. I am Nicolas Cage. Ask me anything. Now that the moderators have announced they will no longer actively solicit celebrities or other high-profile figures to do AMAs, and a whole laundry list of about another half dozen items there. So they're basically saying, again, one of the most popular subreddits out there, 22.5 million subscribers, they're just going to put the brakes on things. So the risk with risk of doing these sorts of things is that Reddit might just basically replace said moderators. These are all volunteer positions, but things are kind of falling apart at Reddit. Now, Will, I'm pretty sure that neither you nor I are as heavy Reddit users as Gray or friend of the show, Jamie Reynolds, who joins us once in a while. But what is your take on these latest these latest developments? Do you think the moderators are getting a little carried away? After all, although they contribute a certain amount to this company, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these moderators, and only a certain percentage of them are going rogue like this. But ultimately, it's not their company per se. Do you think it's getting a bit much, or are they fully justified to protest what they see as a grave injustice against these third-party app makers?
I think it's such a difficult situation. I think that there definitely is some reason and cause for them to protest in this way. At the same point, as Tasia is fond of saying, social media is rented ground. I think the other part that's kind of, I think is happening across the internet and across various platforms, and streaming is another one, is the economy is going down a little bit, and these things that have never made money are trying to figure out how to make money. They're trying to rethink their business model. And it's interesting to me because I think some of these things fundamentally don't really make enough money to keep them going. Things like Netflix or Facebook or Twitter or, Reddit. And you do really have to be careful when you rely so much on volunteers. You can be like, well, we'll replace you. With who? The people that have wanted to volunteer have probably volunteered or been involved, and maybe we'll find some. But again, what is their inclination going to be if you've sloughed off a bunch of people because they weren't happy with something and wanted to have a conversation with you about how things were going? So, I think that I agree with the people who are protesting, but I also see that there's some desperation in these companies trying to figure out how to get the money out.
The only one bit I would disagree with you there is about Facebook. I think Facebook has established pretty well a means to make money, given that they're one of the top two internet advertising companies, them and Google. So, but yeah, for sure, Twitter has barely ever made money over the years, and Elon is trying to figure out a way to do so. Reddit, I'm not sure how profitable they've ever been, but they're trying to go public and get some more investment dollars so that maybe they can do other things. But it is true, especially when you are relying so heavily on volunteer moderators. One of the challenges for sites like Facebook and Twitter over the years is that they have to pay moderators, and that's really expensive. So sometimes they end up outsourcing to international teams, and I think it would be overkill to say sweatshop conditions that these folks are working in, but they tend to be lower paid in other parts of the world, and they have to review a lot of nasty stuff to decide whether or not it should actually remain on these platforms.
This is also, sorry, just to jump in on that point, is that this is part of the charm, at least that I understand about Reddit, is that it feels like it's done by the community, right? That it's not just somebody in their ivory tower somewhere behind a screen that's anonymous, that it's actually somebody that you talk to, sort of like forums were and are. I mean, forums still exist, forums, but but they're not as popular as they were, say, 15 years ago. I still know websites and I'm involved in websites that have forums, but they're not what they used to be. But yeah, that's a good point about Facebook. But I know that they had a problem with getting the money out for years. But they're making a lot of money. I guess they're profitable. But yeah, there's a lot of things. Another probably a really good example is just because you took one example away, I have to give another one, which is music streaming has a lot of problems, and there's the odd protest once in a while, like De La Soul saying don't listen to our music on Spotify because we're not getting paid what we're worth. And I know that this is a big bone of contention with things like Netflix and other things with the writer's strike that's going on right now, and we might actually see an actor's strike coming up because of artificial intelligence and streaming rights and all this stuff. So I feel like a lot of this is, hitting the front pages, because really some of these things, people want things for free, but at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for something. There's labor, there's whether it's volunteer or not, and the rubber hits the road at some point and somebody has to pay for it.
That's exactly right. And in Reddit's case, they're the volunteer moderators. They are asserting their own power as volunteer labor in this case, and they're not demanding to be paid. They're just demanding that Reddit rethink this whole scheme for monetizing their APIs and cutting a break to some of these third-party app developers that actually help to improve the Reddit experience for some more advanced users, quite frankly, because a lot of people complain that the native Reddit app, the first-party Reddit app that was basically an adaptation of a former third-party app called Alien Blue, is not that great. So people would go, the more sophisticated Reddit users would go to these third-party apps, such as Apollo. And there is one on Android called Riff, RIF, which stands for Reddit is Fun. So but those are going away now. And as of, I think July, was it June 30th or July 1st is when the cutoff was. So now things are getting even more dramatic.
I will also say I'm maybe got my own experience because I do some volunteering for local soccer groups. And one of the things that I've always been adamant about is that, I tend to do creative things as I do in my normal life and enjoy doing, both for work and for my own hobby. And I always say, you got to give me some autonomy of creativity, because I don't have that much autonomy of creativity at work. So if I'm doing something for free, it's got to be at least somewhat, I've got to have a say. So, if I'm going to do this as a side project, then I want to say, and that's always been my line. And if people don't like that, then I walk away from it because I don't need it. And my saying is always, if you're going to tell me what to do and I have to do exactly what you want me to do, then you have to pay me. So if I don't have any autonomy or freedom or creativity, then I'm walking. And my current job is pretty good with creativity, but what I'm saying, which is like, when the rubber hits the road, you do what the boss wants, right? So if you're going to do that to me as a volunteer, then I'll walk, because I got other stuff that I can do.
Well, speaking of what the boss wants, moving from one dumpster fire to another.
There's another example.
Yeah. Over the weekend, some Twitter users were experiencing error messages, basically saying that they had exceeded the number of requests, and their feeds, their timelines weren't being updated as they would hope. They weren't seeing new tweets and the like. Well, as it turns out, there was Elon had posted a notice that they had been limiting the number of posts that various accounts could read. Now, this was done for ostensibly a legitimate purpose to help combat the rampant scraping of data. So this is similar to the Reddit situation, by third parties who may be using Twitter information again to educate their AI systems or to populate their content farms. Who knows? But this is Elon Musk's claim, and he said in a tweet that verified accounts would be limited to reading 6,000 posts a day. So those are accounts that have been previously verified if they still maintained their verification status, many of which have not, or nowadays might be paying a monthly subscription for Twitter Blue. Unverified accounts are going to be limited to 600 posts a day, and new unverified accounts to a mere 300 posts a day. So if you're scrolling quickly, that you can get through that pretty quickly. In response to the outrage, the rate limits were then increased to 8,800 and 400 for verified, unverified, and new unverified, respectively. And then there's another update yesterday afternoon. Those limits were being increased to 10,000, 1,000, and 500 for verified, unverified, and new unverified accounts. Again, Musk was claiming extreme levels of data scraping from several hundred organizations and some sort of unspecified system manipulation. Now, to be fair, bots have been an issue for a long time on Twitter, bots that post, but also bots that scrape. However, this seems like a bit of a blunt instrument that is being used to combat this problem and is punishing everyday users. Some people, their take on it is that this is just another push to get people to subscribe to Twitter Blue.
Yeah.
That could very well be the case. But one example of how these sorts of things and the outages that have been occurring as well, all while this is happening as their Twitter servers melt down, is the access of the API access from different third-party widgets gets broken. So I'm just going to show a quick example on our website. So our company is called Limestone Learning, and we had for the longest time a Twitter widget, a native Squarespace Twitter widget. Squarespace is the website tool that we use, and we had a nice, elegant widget that would display the latest tweets. Well, unfortunately, about 4 or 6 weeks ago, that stopped working as Twitter was cutting off API access to various tools. And so then we opted for the native Twitter widget. So you can go to a page on Twitter's website and create your own Twitter widget that is like fully endorsed by Twitter. Well, you'll see here that doesn't even work right now. Nothing to see here. It's like, well, thanks, guys. We're trying to use the tools that you make available, and now those aren't even working. So that's just another symptom of the chaos at Twitter.
Elon gonna Elon. That's what
Elon's gonna Elon. But it's if you've got actual problems, they're trying to work on those problems. It's just a question of, are they approaching those problems the right way? Have there been targeted attacks, for example, on Twitter? That could very well be the case. For example, last year, you may recall once Elon had bought Twitter and took over, and that transition happened, and then started doing massive amounts of layoffs. And most folks in the industry agree that Twitter was pretty fat on the staffing side. There was lots of people there who weren't doing a whole lot necessarily, and it was really time for a bit of a haircut there. Some people feel that they cut a little too deeply. But while all this was happening, and some of the layoffs included people on their trust and safety teams and the like, all of a sudden you saw these inflammatory news reports how hate speech was way up on Twitter and this and that, and the uses of a certain N-word that one should never say or write anywhere. Uses of that term was increasing, like, I don't know, how is it, like 500% or more, some huge number. But then once you started digging into the story a little bit, as it turns out, there were actually coordinated attacks by bot farms that were pushing that kind of language onto Twitter for whatever reason. Maybe it was to make Elon look bad, or they just didn't agree what was going on. So one always has to be mindful of what else is happening when these sorts of stories emerge. And sometimes it's a bit more complicated. Either way, not great for users when your most ardent fans, like, oh, they can't read the tweets they want to read. And how many of them are actually going to sign up and pay for Twitter Blue, at $8 starting at $8 US per month. So as this happens, Will, I don't know about you, but a lot of people out there have started exploring other options for Twitter. We've talked about Mastodon in the past, and I have a Mastodon account. As I've mentioned, and there's a certain type of person, certain type of political leaning that has sort of moved over that way.
White, nerdy, and right wing? Is that
no,
what you
right,
mean?
nerdy, and left wing.
Left wing. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they're just griping about Twitter. I mean, there's more to it than that, obviously, but that's all part of the Fediverse, decentralized servers. People can set up in their own servers, but then they get to decide the policies. But instead of having one emperor, now you have a whole bunch of little emperors running their own servers, and they decide whether or not they're going to connect to each other. And one of the controversies is that Facebook is launching their own service soon that may be connected to the Fediverse as well. And some of these Mastodon instances have said, well, we're not gonna connect to them. We don't like Facebook. It's like, well, I mean, I guess that's your call, but that kind of like devalues, if you're going to have all of a sudden tons more people participating in this vaunted metaverse, now you're just going to like cut them off on principle because you don't like the company that's behind this. Like that, it just seems a little much. One of the other platforms we've talked about as gaining a bit of traction was one that was started by Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey. Yeah. And that one's known as Blue Sky. I've got a Blue Sky account as well. But apparently over this past weekend, it's seen record web traffic after the latest shenanigans and developments at Twitter over the weekend with these outages and throttling of the number of tweets that someone could read. So Blue Sky Social, available on your I believe it's on iOS and Android app stores. It looks very much like Twitter. It's invite only, so that means you have to be invited by a current Blue Sky user. And I might have some invites to give out. Let me know if you want one.
Sure.
So it's getting some traction. I've been on there a little bit. It's kind of different than Mastodon, of course, but it's worth checking out. There's another one called T2 as well, which is kind of code for Twitter too, but I can't recall who's behind that exactly. But this is all part of a larger trend right now where for so many years, Twitter has kind of been like the go-to source for online breaking news. Mm-hmm. And when you think about who's on there, it's journalists, celebrities, athletes, tech people, a lot of very engaged users, and then all the people who want to follow those folks. And a lot of the people following those folks didn't necessarily even have Twitter accounts. They would just read content without even being logged in. That's one thing that Elon's trying to get away from, is preventing non-logged in access. So people actually have to have a Twitter account, which helps juice their numbers a bit, but it also helps with tracking of said users and whatnot, so they can get those metrics and improve the service.
I was bummed because I sometimes check, even though I have a Twitter account, sometimes I just, the web interface, if I'm just checking one, there's just a couple people sometimes I follow for news, like on local sports, and I'll just search them by name. And on the weekend, I was like, no, I knew this was going to happen.
What's my Twitter password again?
What's my Twitter password again? Oh, God dang it.
Yeah. So we've mentioned Mastodon, the decentralized approach. We've mentioned Blue Sky, which also apparently is decentralized as well, but not as obviously so. T2. There's another one called Spill, which is climbing up the App Store. And it is a large text captions over pictures, GIFs, or video clips add the conversational pace of Twitter to the look of Instagram or TikTok. It's apparently founded by two former Twitter employees. One comment I saw seemed to imply that that's where a lot of African-American users were heading, so also known as Black Twitter. A lot of said users had tried out Mastodon, but didn't feel it particularly welcoming for one reason or another. Perhaps some of them will find a home at Spill. When you look at some of their promotions, it seems to be targeting folks from that community as well. So we'll see where that goes. We could be entering a period whereby we're seeing the fragmentation of social media, and people aren't all gathering in one place anymore,
Yeah.
which in some ways kind of reflects a lot of other aspects of society and culture, whether it's, going from 3 major TV networks back in the olden days, at least in the US, to, almost unlimited cable channels and streaming platforms and the like. And it's, the water cooler chats are a lot different because people aren't watching, the season or the series finale of MASH anymore and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So is this another symptom of that sort of thing? And then lastly, we've got launching supposedly in 2 days from now, and we'll probably be talking about this next week, is Instagram Threads. So that is Meta's upcoming foray into a Twitter-like platform that may attract some folks because they've got a huge built-in audience there from existing users of Meta products such as Instagram and perhaps Facebook. So, Will, my question to you, with all these various Twitter alternatives emerging, and none of them really taking the mantle as of yet, I guess I have 2 questions for you. One is, if you had to choose one, which one do you think it would be? And which one, despite what your preference is, and this could be the same answer, what do you think is most likely to succeed?
Well, I think Twitter is starting to circle the bull with Elon, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know. I mean, I think I mentioned this in the past. I'm not the biggest fan of the Twitter platform and the way that it works. I find that it just degrades into like arguments, and I use it more as a news reader than anything, and try to avoid the comments as much as possible. I have people that I follow, and then I don't comment, and I don't want to read comments. So I'm just as happy checking out news aggregators and such. So for me, it's just where the people that I follow or that I'm interested in listening to are posting. So, some of them have also tried to branch out into Instagram. So some of them I actually stop looking at on Twitter because they're on Instagram. So I would say whichever one captures the people that I'm interested in listening to. I'm not married to Twitter, literally and figuratively. And I just don't enjoy interacting with people online. I find it degrades into yelling and miscommunication most of the time. So
you gotta follow better people.
Yeah, well, I don't know why, but Instagram, whenever I talk to people on Instagram, like, they're all nice. I don't know if it's just the community I'm in, or just the people I end up talking to, or it's better moderated, or I don't know what, but I just find it's less about the conversation and more about posting images. And then that leads to fewer, N-words and such. So, or yelling at people about, you're wrong, you forgot what happened in the second movie, idiot. So there's lots of that kind of stuff.
So I guess that's the thing, is like, no matter what the platform is, whether it was Usenet back in the 80s and early 90s, or web forums, or various flavors of social media platforms, be it Facebook or Twitter or what have you, there's always going to be people who are there for a fight. There will be people who are there to troll and trying to get a rise out of people, because that's how some people get their jollies. And quite frankly, it's a bit mystifying. But I've found my interactions on Twitter have been pretty anodyne, pretty positive for the most part. I, like you, I don't seek to get into conversations very often in there. And especially, I am not a fan of arguing with strangers on the internet, because there is absolutely no percentage in that, quite frankly. As for Instagram, which I enjoy, but I only follow a handful of people on there, it doesn't seem to be as well suited as Twitter for having ongoing conversations back and forth, threads and whatnot, because it tends to be media oriented, whether it's an image or a video, or reels or stories, all the different things they've thrown at it, and which they've also been thrown into Facebook as well. Facebook, I guess you could say, is maybe a little better because for conversations, because there are the comments section attached to any given post. But Twitter, I think because it started off as a text only platform initially, and the way conversations are threaded and the way it's all organized still seems to be the best of the worst from that point of view. Now, it seems that what Meta is going for with Threads is a similar sort of approach, kind of like what T2 and Blue Sky Post to a lesser extent. Post does look similar to Twitter, but it is more journalism oriented. There's another one called Hive, which I haven't looked into much myself. But when Instagram Threads launches on July 6th or so, from what I understand, is that it is going to have a text-based approach as well. I'm sure there'll be the ability to include media as well. But if you actually go into the Instagram app now and just search for the word Threads, a little ticket might show up in the top right corner of the search bar. You can click on that and it will show you a little sort of basically a virtual ticket with a QR code on it. It's almost like a backstage pass to get into Threads. And when you click through, it'll take you to your app store where you can get you can follow the app. You can't download it quite yet, but you can request a notification for when the app actually launches. So I have gone and done that. And anyone who's at all interested in what Facebook has to offer, it's one of these things where, we haven't really talked about the possible cage match between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg.
That would be awesome.
That ever happened. But there's a lot of folks
who don't like enter, one man leaves.
But there's tons of folks who don't like Elon. There's tons of folks who don't like Zuckerberg. But if these are the two of the most viable options, Twitter or Threads, some people are going to be really torn if you want to, because ultimately the value of these social platforms is largely determined by the critical mass, like the number of people who are on there, especially if it's like a general purpose news or social app. If it's a niche thing and you don't mind it being a niche thing, sure. But platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook wouldn't be nearly as useful to folks, everyday folks, if they didn't have the huge numbers on them that they do, like in the hundreds of millions, or in the case of Instagram, 1 billion plus, and Facebook, I think pushing 3 billion monthly active users there. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how this all shakes out. So, Will, my question to you is,
oh no,
do you think you'll be checking out Instagram Threads?
I might be interested in checking it out. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing too. You sort of commented that it tends to be a platform where, at least Instagram is a platform that doesn't encourage the back and forth conversation. I don't really want much back and forth conversation.
That's right. All depends on what you're looking for, right?
Yeah. So I might check it out just for giggles and whatnot. But yeah, I'm not super psyched about it. I've sort of got my social media itch per se, and I actually was someone who I've had a couple bad interactions on Twitter, and that was part of what made me give it up. And I don't know if you heard the joke that Ricky Gervais said about Twitter, but it's kind of like if there was a town square and there was a bulletin board in the town square, and somebody went to the bulletin board and it said free guitar lessons, take this number. And they took the number and they called up the number and said, free guitar lessons? I don't want guitar lessons. How dare you? Click.
Yeah, it takes all types, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see once July 6th comes around, we'll be able to tell for ourselves if we think this is going to go anywhere. One person is, I think, unconvinced at this point, and that is Jack Dorsey himself, one of the original co-founders of Twitter and subsequently Blue Sky, not to mention Block, which was originally called Square, which is quite successful finance app there. But he tweeted out, so Jack is still on Twitter, and he tweeted out the data policies, in terms of the data transparency that is requested by Apple with iOS apps, and noted all of the different things. Here's a classic symptom. I go and click through on tweets that are embedded in websites, and they're not even coming up like that.
So what's the usefulness? I mean, it's really, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Exactly. But look at all these things. Like the following data may be collected and linked to your identity using the Threads app: health and fitness, purchases, financial info, location, contact info, contacts, user content, search history, browsing history, identifiers, and more. And that's pretty par for the course when it comes to Meta products, be they Facebook, Instagram, perhaps WhatsApp and whatnot. And of course, Elon replies, yeah. Who knows? I'm not sure exactly what all the potential linked data is on Twitter or Blue Sky. I imagine Blue Sky is somewhat less. But for maximum advertising targeting, you want to be able to track as much data as you can about folks. So you're showing them relevant ads. So it's one of those questions. How much do you value your privacy? Someone like Tasia has argued that, that era is over anyhow. And how much do you value seeing if you're going to have to see ads, would you rather see relevant ads or irrelevant ads? Mm-hmm. I don't care to see diaper commercials, for example. It's not really relevant to my life, but everyone's got their own preference and their own tolerance for the invasiveness with regards to data collection, privacy, and how that balances against the targetedness of advertising and so on. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, so July 6th, mark your calendars. Instagram Threads coming soon. I still can't believe how all these embedded tweets from websites are actually broken now. Like, fix your stuff, Twitter.
I know, it's so bad.
Let's move on to something else, shall we? Again, we have to take advantage of when Tasia's not here to talk about Barbie. I mean, gaming. And in this case, Xbox is giving away a Barbie DreamHouse Xbox console. Would you look at that, Will? With all sorts of customizable faceplates for your Xbox controllers. Xbox announced a series of Barbie-related promotions for the gamer girl or guy, if you're into Barbie. I don't know. So Forza, some other collabs include Forza Horizon 5 players can drive in style in Barbie's pink 1956 Chevrolet Corvette. Or Ken's 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup. There's all sorts of other Xbox merch and accessories, consoles, wireless controllers, adaptive controllers, and the like that are being rolled out. But it seems like the pièce de résistance here is the Barbie DreamHouse Xbox console.
Yeah.
Will, are you in or what?
I think I'm good, dog.
Now, that being said, if there was some sort of collab with some other IP, intellectual property out there for Xbox or perhaps PlayStation, if that's the way you roll, I know that we both roll that way. I think, although you have had an Xbox in the past, correct?
I've had lots of Xboxes. Okay. This generation of game consoles actually the first time I've gotten off of the Xbox wagon. I'm married, so I game a little bit less than when I was single, so I can't really justify 3 platforms.
Oh, because there's also the Nintendo Switch as well. All right, so no matter the platform, what IP collaboration would best tempt you to getting yet another console? Like, if that includes doubling up on the PlayStation or Nintendo Switch side, or taking the plunge back into the Xbox side, what would just be irresistible? And you can't say Vestax mix.
Well, that would be irresistible. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it would have to be something really awesome. Like, I want to say like Star Wars or something, but it would have, I mean, they've done Star Wars things. They would have to be like really awesome. Because we're talking about a lot of money.
PlayStation's done like Spider-Man tie-ins before, right?
Yeah, they've done Spider-Man tie-ins. They've done a bunch of things. I think for me, it's like this Barbie one, and like, I'm gonna see the movie just to be honest and fair here.
Yeah.
And just because I'm interested in it, sounds like just fun. I don't know much about the Barbie franchise, to be honest. My wife is super psyched. It's funny because we were talking to my nephew, who has 3 sisters, and he's like, oh, you guys are phonies. I had to sit through all the Barbie movies. If you haven't seen all of the Barbie canon, you can't watch the movie.
Wow. Shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired. So he's joking, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the tie-ins, and I know this is always the case with movies, some of them have been pretty brutal. Like I was watching a commercial the other day for insurance, and they were tying it into like Barbie, like how the insurance person was like was putting insurance on the Barbie DreamHouse in the car and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God, this is pretty tenuous at best. So, you know, some of these tie-ins are pretty brutal. So I'm not exactly sure why Xbox is tied into Barbie, but hey, if you're a Barbie fan, this must be just awesome power. So
yeah, are they looking to grow your user base and serve the quote unquote gamer girl market, or is it like an ironic thing? Are they aiming for like the brony types, like adult men interested in My Little Pony, and does a similar contingent exist for Barbie fandom as well?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a really interesting phenomenon, to say the least. So moving from the Barbie DreamHouse Xbox to another phenomenon. Well, that's actually the same phenomenon. That's the first salvo in Mattel's assault on the entertainment industry. Now, we've seen in the past other toy-related movie tie-ins, such as Transformers. We saw Battleship. So taking sort of a fancy board game and making it into a movie and introducing aliens in there. It was an interesting take, for sure. What other?
Well, G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe. Did they have? Oh yeah, they had
never
the
done that
there.
properly.
Yeah.
I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan. I don't know if the listeners out there know this, but I am a huge G.I. Joe fan, and I have been mostly disappointed by the G.I. Joe.
Really? Go on. Yes. Disappointed in what way? There's been 2 G.I. Joe movies so far, right?
Well, technically, there's been 3.
Oh,
they did a Snake Eyes Origins, which flopped tremendously a couple years back.
Okay. What in your mind was wrong with the G.I. Joe movies?
I think, you know, the formula for G.I. Joe is none of them are all that important. It's about the team, right? It's not about the individual, and they tend to focus on individuals. So even the first movie that they made, it was more about Duke and Ripcord. And, you know, yes, you got to have characters that you follow, but it seemed to kind of ignore that it's not about the individual, it's about the group. And probably the worst example was they did the Snake Eyes movie a couple of years ago, and it was focused on one guy, not the whole cavalcade of characters. And it was supposed to be G.I. Joe Origin. Because the character is mute and you never see his face, and he talks and you see his face in the movie. So it just feels like they did something else. And it also felt like it was trying to be Fast and Furious. So it was very much sort of car chases and all these extreme stunts, and not about, I don't know, military or fighting Cobra. So, you know, it's like trying to just use a franchise veneer to sell whatever they want to sell or turn it into something. Find out what the DNA of the franchise is and do that. And the Barbie movie does seem like it's got its DNA. So that's always the thing with me on G.I. Joe. It's like, guys, it's not that hard. Just to have a group of people and they each have a specialty, and you don't follow any one of them all that closely, and they just fight another group.
With Barbie, however, it looks like they're taking a bit of a meta approach to it, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, and it's not quite so earnest or serious.
No.
What's interesting here is that I guess this is really Mattel's first foray. Like as mentioned, we've seen a whole slew of Transformers movies. We've seen some G.I. Joe, and you know, there was a Masters of the Universe movie back in 1987.
Yes,
I don't know. I never saw that. I'm not sure how great that was.
I
And
loved it, but I was a kid. I think
yeah,
people who were older thought it was garbage, but I haven't seen it in 30 years. So
of course, we've seen a lot more on television, to be sure, because there's a bit less financial investment. But Mattel, they see, I guess, the way things are going, and they figure we've got all this IP, all this intellectual property. Why don't we cash in, like do what Hasbro has been doing with Transformers, and just go to town? So they are talking to a number of people in Hollywood about taking a look at some of these properties, and talking from everyone from J.J. Abrams to Vin Diesel to whomever. They've got this respected director, Greta Gerwig, starting off the whole process with Barbie. But the question is, do these make sense? So Hot Wheels, maybe. I guess one of the questions that was posed, like, why are there 10, or I guess 11 if you count Hobbs and Shaw Fast and the Furious movies, but no Hot Wheels movies? We had Real Steel, but no actual Rock'em Sock'em Robots movie, right?
So the other thing that's going on,
Mhm.
because again, I'm on nerdy forums about GI Joes, is for the last couple of years, some of these type organizations with lots of IPs are looking at the fact that we've kind of come to the end of Star Wars for a while. We kind of come to the end of Indiana Jones perhaps for a while. Marvel's kind of falling off a little bit.
Saturated. Yeah.
We could be the next franchise. We could be the next thing. So there's a bunch of people circling, looking like, hey, we have these IPs, whether it's Hasbro or Mattel, or I'm sure there's other people trying as well. They Universal tried their monsters a few years ago, and that fell flat. So they did like a mummy movie with Tom Cruise that went nowhere. That was supposed to be a shared universe that didn't work.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's a bunch of people going, hey, the big players for the last number of years are starting to wind down. Maybe we have a shot at this. Maybe we have a shot at our franchise being the next big thing.
Apparently Hasbro, following the release of Transformers, they had struck a 6-year deal with Universal, which secured the film rights to other toys and games, including Monopoly and Candyman.
Yeah.
Apparently Ridley Scott had signed on one point to direct a Monopoly movie.
I had heard about the Monopoly movie. Yeah.
Haven't seen the light of day yet. Candyland went to Sony apparently, and they were going to make a movie with Adam Sandler, but that didn't go anywhere. A Viewmaster movie, Mattel is apparently toying with. Some of the others that were there that are being bandied about include Major Matt Mason, who I'm not familiar with, a reboot of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Barney, Polly Pocket, Magic 8 Ball, Matchbox. So I guess like Matchbox race cars, kind of like Hot Wheels, I suppose. Boglins, whatever that is, and the card game Uno. So we're talking potentially 45 movies that Mattel is currently trying to workshop right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're in for a wild ride of even a fraction of these coming, because given what they did, like what happened with Battleship, like that was like only most superficially associated with the game. But just get once the writers aren't on strike anymore, get a bunch of them in the writers' room and feed them lots of coffee, and we'll see what they can, and maybe some AI, and see what they can come up with. So, Will, are we reaching the singularity here? Like, do you think there's actually much to be gained from mining toy property? Are we going to, I mean, I guess to be fair, we've seen a whole pile of Lego movies, so maybe this is our lives now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Look, as we know, I'm a huge comic book fan, and I was a comic book fan for a long time. And for a while, there was a couple comic book franchises that did okay, but Marvel had problems, right? They never were able to do good interpretation. There was a bunch of garbage movies from the 80s. I think it was like the one that made the light of day the most was the Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren. And those movies, like, they had so much potential, but they ended up just wasting it. It wasn't until, the 2000s they were able to do something with it. So, you never know. My only worry with all these board games is there's not much meat on that bone. I mean, a Viewmaster game, what movie? What are you going to do with that? And like Disney kind of tried this a little bit. It was different, but they tried this a little bit with some of the movies they've done about rides. So they did one on.
Well, there's all the Pirates of the Caribbean rides for starters.
Well, Pirates of the Caribbean
movies, I mean.
Pirates of the Caribbean was successful, but it didn't have a ton to do with the ride. But then they've done a Jungle Book movie. They've done a Haunted Mansion movie with
coming
Eddie
soon.
Murphy. They're doing another one that's coming out. Another Haunted Mansion movie's coming out. And they've also done a Tomorrowland movie, which was based on a land, not a ride. But I'm just.
When are they doing a Matterhorn movie?
Yeah, they should do a Matterhorn movie. But I'm just saying the only one that was really successful was the Pirates of the Caribbean, because there's not much plot, like Haunted Mansion has a plot, but it's pretty loose, right? So these properties are even worse than that. If I'm saying there's not much meat on the bone compared to the Haunted Mansion ride, there's like a whole feast at the Haunted Mansion ride, and they haven't been able to do that properly. So we'll see. There is, like I said, there's a new one coming out. So we'll see if they solve that problem. But don't ruin Haunted Mansion. I love Haunted Mansion.
So speaking of toys and Legos and the like, there's just a little short clip I thought I would include in the show notes for folks, and I thought I got a little bit of a giggle out of it. And someone recreated key scenes from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, the somewhat controversial adaptation of the Stephen King novel that Stephen King did not really dig. Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, Stephen King did more endorse more fully, but in this we've got Lego stop motion recreations of some of the key scenes from the original Shining movie, which is kind of fun to watch. So, Will, I know you're not a huge horror fan per se, but what Lego adaptation, be it like a proper Lego movie or even a fun little Lego sort of synopsis like this clip here, would you like to see?
Well, people do this a lot of like recreations and stuff. I think Pulp Fiction would be funny. Maybe somebody's already done it. That would be a good one. But yeah, I watch a lot of the Lego things they make for children on like Disney Plus. They do like they have Lego Star Wars Christmas specials and things like that. I think they might have even done a Halloween special, but this is completely different. So this is fun to see a different take.
One of the ones I remember from years and years ago that I quite enjoyed, it was, not really based on any particular story per se, but it was an adaptation of an Eddie Izzard sketch.
Oh man! Oh yes, I've seen that.
And featuring Chad Vader. So some relation of Darth Vader, and it was actually my first exposure to said Eddie Izzard sketch, and it was called Chad Vader, Day Shift Manager. There's 4 seasons apparently. There's the night shift. The one that I had seen. Actually, no, I'm getting confused. Chad Vader was the live action one. My bad. The Darth Vader, it was Darth Vader, and it was basically in the canteen on the Death Star, and the Death Star canteen was it was one of the Eddie Izzard bit, and the animation, Lego animation alongside of Eddie Izzard's performance was quite cute. And that was 16 years ago. Wow. 2007. Well, we'd only known each other for a couple of years then.
Yeah. I don't want to think about it.
Fine. We won't think about it. We'll move on. So we've got a few trailers just to talk about quickly here. One was it's based on a game called Five Nights at Freddy's. Have you ever played that game, Will?
I have not, and I have about zero interest in it. But let's talk about this.
Well, it's quite a scary game to play.
I know.
There's a lot of jump scares. Actually,
Yeah.
Some of the early clips by Vancouver YouTuber JJ McCullough were playthroughs of Five Nights at Freddy's with a friend. So again, is another example of taking a video game and adapting it into a movie. So we'll see how that. I'll say I'm curious. One of the actors was in Future Man, which was a series from a couple of years ago. There's another trailer that came out recently for a movie called Final Cut, and I believe it's a French movie. And it's a bit of a twist to it. It's getting a little bit of acclaim. It's basically about a film crew filming a zombie movie, but apparently there's the twist is that some real zombies end up on set somehow, whether it's the existing cast or crew members, or they're infiltrated elsewhere. But hilarity ensues when you've got like fake zombies mixed in with real zombies as well. And then there's another movie with Jamie Foxx, John Boyega, and Teyonah Parris in another in a movie called They Cloned Tyrone. And this is actually going to be on Netflix. And this looks like a lot of fun. The outlandish trio stumbles upon a government conspiracy with high thrills and hilarious hijinks and 70s galore. It almost feels like a little bit blaxploitation type movie, but great cast there. Looks like some fun. So of those three, Will, the Five Nights at Freddy's, the Final Cut, or They Cloned Tyrone, which of these piques your interest most?
They cloned Tyrone for sure. That looks very interesting.
What about it appeals to you more so than the other two?
I just think it looks. First of all, I do like Jamie Foxx, and I do like I always just call it, what's his name? I always call him by his Star Wars name. Finn, yeah.
John Boyega, yeah.
John Boyega. I like those actors very much. And what's her name? Parris. She's in
Teyonah Parris, yeah.
Yeah, she's in the Marvel as Spectrum.
Right.
So I enjoy her as well. Plus, I just think it looks fun and a bit campy and a bit, like you say, blaxploitation, but it feels to me a little bit, in a weird way, like my brain's gone today. I'm sorry, long day at work. But a little bit like what's that show? Sorry,
it's okay.
Totally blanking. The one that's so super popular with 11. What's the name of the show?
Stranger Things?
Stranger Things. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm getting a Stranger Things vibe for sure.
Interesting. Oh, right. Just with the creepiness to it, or the mystery.
The creepiness. Yeah. There's a secret lab doing stuff, and gotcha. They're sneaking down there, and they're just regular people fighting against the government and
gotcha.
or some scientists or something. So it's more 70s and less 80s, but it feels like it's got a bit of that vibe about Stranger Things. Sorry, I'm just totally blanking today.
No worries. Well, whenever
Cat woke me up at 5 a.m. and I worked until just a few minutes before I got here. So,
whenever you've got Jamie Foxx playing a pimp, that screams blaxploitation to me. So throw a dash of Stranger Things, and this could be very interesting. I'm looking forward to checking this out on Netflix when it arrives sometime soon. There's no date on this particular link, I'm afraid. Coming soon, if it's not there already. Okay, let's get on to our momentous picks, shall we, Will?
Sure.
And what's your pick of the week? This is something we talked about this musical last week, but your pick is actually a video about this musical.
Yes. So I picked this one. There's a bunch of videos out there. I'm a big fan of Fresh Baked, Dave and his wife, Liz. I took a picture with him when I was at Disneyland not that long ago.
What, do they just basically live there? Or what?
No, well, he goes like 3 days a week. So,
oh my goodness.
but this is it's more than just the show. He talks about
and the show being
they
Rogers
released
the
some
musical. Yeah.
Rogers the musical that we talked about last week. So
Mhm.
he shows a lot of the musical. He talks about how to get into the musical. He talks about the drinks and food and merchandise that they released around the musical. So it's not just the musical itself. You can go online and find some videos that are just of the musical. He saw it twice, so he's actually talking about 2 experiences he had watching it. And he did a VIP because you can pay for a VIP thing. And so he did a VIP as well. And then he also just lined up and did a virtual queue. Yeah, I mean, I've now seen a few videos of Rogers the Musical. I think my wife and I have watched it maybe 3 times. It's about half an hour long. It's good.
Well, it must be if you've seen it 3 times.
Yeah, no, we enjoyed it a lot. I secretly do like some musicals. I'm not a huge musical fan, but if the musical is good, I enjoy it. That I won't watch any musical. That has to be a good musical, in my opinion. And this is a good musical. I'm still singing the I Could Do This All Day. Mm-hmm. Save the city, help us win. You know, I've just got that song stuck in my head all weekend. But yeah, no, it's really good. Now we're so nerdy. We went back and watched the original Hawkeye version, the full version of because they did release a full version as it was shown in Hawkeye, and they changed it a little bit. They had to, just because this is really now focusing on Steve Rogers. So it's a little different, but it's really good and it's flushed out a lot. And I enjoyed this a lot. The actors are quite good. The songs are catchy and memorable. And it's really enjoyable. I mean, it is kind of like shot from a handy cam. So please keep that in mind. That's just somebody sitting in the audience recording it. But, you know, I think it's quite good. So this is the whole experience. They went to it twice. Yeah. They're talking about the merchandise. They're showing the whole show. So they show the whole show. They talk about what they thought about it. So, and I really, you know, enjoy Dave and his wife, Liz. And I recommended this one particularly because it's not just about the musical. It's about everything to do with the musical and how Disney's marketing it and all that kind of stuff.
I appreciate that they got into the food a little bit too. That's
no, they talk about the food and whether they like it or not. And
I'm hungry just looking at it.
Yeah. Apparently they like that pastrami hot dog, by the way, with film strip fries. Makes me hungry too now.
So you can search for Fresh Baked on YouTube to see their Disney videos, and including Rogers the musical.
As he puts a hot dog into the screen.
My pick this week is very stupid.
For family.
Fast X. So, Will, you and I finally, after it had been out for a month or more, finally got a chance to go to the theater and see Vin Diesel expound on the virtues of family. And a bunch of other stuff happens. Maybe a couple of car chases, maybe some races, maybe some tossing out the laws of physics, perhaps, in some cases.
And continuity, tossing out the rules of continuity as well.
I don't even know. It's just like, it was incredibly stupid, but a lot of fun. And there's no one I would rather enjoy that with than you, since you're one of the people who got me into this stupid series.
I enjoy it because I just turn my brain off. Yeah. I love thinking about things and overthinking things. You just don't overthink this. You enjoy it for what it is. And I told you this, the one thing that unifies all of them, besides family and the actors, is there is always one scene where they go to a car race and they like zoom in and pan scantily clad ladies leaning over cars and like wrenching them for some reason, even though they're wearing clothes that they would not be fixing cars with. And then it's like big bass music or trap or hip hop, boom, boom. And then Vin Diesel or somebody said something like, "I'm home," or something like that. That's the one scene that every movie has.
Indeed. What did you think of Jason Momoa as the villain. He sure chewed the scenery, that's for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I think he was having fun doing that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's a crazy character. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good for what it is. I mean, I'm not going. It's not going to win an Oscar. But for anything other than special effects. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was.
It was, and also starring Brie Larson. We had Charlize Theron reprising her role as well. Yeah, it's just so dumb, but lots of fun, as we said. So that's Fast X. That's still in theaters. It'll probably be on streaming pretty soon.
Mhm.
And what's the 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb? So a real popcorn movie. All right, what's your project this week, Will?
My project is that I hit level 20 on my looper that's on tabletist.net app and online. You're looking at the online looper here, and also on Table Beats app that you can download and search for me, Molotov. And this is my 20th installment.
Wow.
My friends over at Table Beats, I told them it was my 3-year anniversary, and they posted some stats because I guess they pulled the numbers. I've either created solo loopers or been a part of 49 loopers.
Wow.
So this is my 20th this, but I've either done I do all sorts of side loopers, but I also do collaborations with other people. So I've been on 49 loopers and 573 loops.
Dude, amazing. That just shows you, like, when you just keep at something and week in and week out and just having fun, messing around and shipping, which you're doing, it really starts to pile up.
And I think I've told you this, but about 2 years ago, I started with the edict to myself because I heard this old clip of Kanye. Now, whatever your opinion of Kanye, I don't take his advice on most things, but I took his advice on this, is that he said when he was getting started, there was one summer where he did a beat a day. Every day that whole summer, he tried to do one song every day, and that was his goal. So I said to myself, I'm going to create one loop every day. And I've been doing that for 2 years. I haven't stopped. I had to download an app when I went to Disneyland so I could make a beat on my tablet because I wasn't taking my laptop. So yeah, every day, no matter what happens. Sometimes there's been a couple times where it's been close because I've had a couple family situations over the last year where it's like 11:40 and I'm like, oh my god, I need to make a beat. I can't break the streak.
The beat deadline approaches.
The beat deadline approaches. So yeah, there's been a couple times where I just like, whoo, just by the hair of my chinny chin, I've snuck a beat out. But yeah, normally I try to do it before I go to work or just when I come back from work. So
that really ties into the whole Jerry Seinfeld ethic of don't break the chain, right? Just right. Yeah. He would write every day because you want to be able to cross those, boxes off on the calendar.
Yeah,
and just keep it going. Don't break the chain.
Yeah, and sometimes I create one and it's garbage, and sometimes I create one and I'm like, oh my god, I have 6 more ideas, and I create 10. Nice. So so sometimes it's one and 20 minutes of my life or half an hour of my life, and I was like, well, I'll never use that again. And then sometimes I pump out like 10 and 15 minutes. So it's amazing sometimes when you're inspired, but if you don't do it every day, you don't get to the great experiences where you get, I mean, that's what I'm always chasing, like a drug addict. I'm always chasing the awesome beat, like the next awesome beat, the next inspiration. And that's what keeps me going. And I go, okay, so I wasted 20 minutes. I learned a little bit. I practiced. Maybe tomorrow will be better.
Just getting the reps in. So my question to you then is, when you make more than one in a day, say you do 6, do you then take the next 5 days off, or do you go back at it the next
day? Every day. What minimum one? One. But if I create 5 in a day, if I create 30 in a day, the next day I still create one. There's not 7 a week. It's 1 a day. One has to be created every day.
So if anyone wants to go and check out such timeless classics as Demented Fuzzball, Ghostface Chiller, Basin Fader, or Toxic Megacolon, check out
You should scroll
tableless.net.
down a little bit. There's some better names in there.
There's some good ones there. Check
Bruno
them out for
Mars
yourself.
Attacks was my favorite one.
Bruno Mars Attacks, indeed. So you can go to tableless.net or tablebeats.com, and the link will be in the show notes. Of course, the lovely and talented Tasia Custodi had a regular video for us again this week. The best travel tech 2023, top 10 essential travel accessories I use. So you can find her work at tasiacustodi.com and youtube.com/tasiacustodi. I wouldn't be surprised if she has a video on the upcoming Prime Day coming soon. She often does videos.
Can I say one other thing about Tasia?
What's that?
Is she's my other inspiration. She just does a video every day, every week.
Yep.
And it's amazing. And it's another example, like you're saying, just get the reps in. And she always finds topics, and she's really a big inspiration to me.
Me as well. And look at us. We're at episode 119 for Momentous Live, not to mention all the other Momentous stuff that we've done and hopefully plan to get back to at some point.
Yes.
And look where it's gotten us. Fame, riches.
I'm recognized at Jamie Reynolds barbecue. I'm like a celebrity at the Canada Day barbecue. It's like, oh, I know you from the live stream. Like, oh, really? Okay. So there's like 30 people that know me somewhere in North Van.
So speaking of Tasia, I actually did a little extra with her yesterday. I appeared on one of her episodes, her latest episode of her Talk Techie to Me podcast, where we basically dug into Bill C-18, which was recently passed by the Canadian federal government. And that's that good old nugget of legislation that aims to bring the tech giants like Google and Meta to heel, and demanding that they make deals with the Canadian news outlets and pay them for linking to their news stories.
Yeah.
Kind of like what happened in Australia a couple of years ago, a little bit different. Anyhow, one of the questions we explore is, does the government understand how the internet works and how links work? And to be fair, they shouldn't be able to scrape entire stories. You want to encourage people to click through to the entire story. So, because it's really about advertising revenue ultimately. And if people don't go to the websites of the news publishers, they're not going to view ads, and those publishers will not get that revenue. So I think there's a bit of a middle ground to be established here, but we explore our thoughts on what some might consider government overreach and trying to tell these companies what to do. And there's a lot of issues that we get into. So if esoteric government legislation regarding tech giants and online journalism appeals to you, check out the Talk Techie to Me podcast. You can find that at Tasia's website at tasiacustodi.com, and you can go to the tab that says My Work, and she's got the Talk Techie to Me podcast link there. Of course, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, probably Spotify, and others. And you can find the Momentous podcast, of course, at momentous.tv/podcast. You can follow all our team members at momentous.tv/team, and all our other social links at momentous.tv/links. We did it, Will. Just you and me. We got through. Hopefully next week we'll have Tasia and Gray back with us.
I missed them.
Me too. But until then, we hope your week is truly momentous.